Mr. Speaker, this government made a commitment a number of years ago to twin Highway 43 from west of Edmonton to the BC border. Here it is many years later, and yet there are still several two-lane sections on this road. My questions are to the Minister of Transportation. Can the Minister tell me when he expects his department to complete the twinning of Highway 43?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we are making excellent progress, and Mr. Speaker, that is a 450 kilometre section of road that we have committed to paving. We have done 400 out of 435 kilometres from Edmonton to Grand Prairie. Mr. Speaker, we are at the point of only having 35 kilometres left. And I can tell you that by 2013, that'll be completed.
The Honourable Member.
At the other end.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My supplemental question to the same minister. Some of that construction is taking place through the Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, where there were reduced speed limit signs through the construction zone. But can the minister tell me why the reduced speed limit signs are still up even though the construction season is now over?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the construction season is not over. In fact, the 80 kilometres an hour speed limit has been put up. There is still work being done on that road, and it is for the safety of travellers and also individuals that are working. Mr. Speaker, when that road is done and the people aren't there and the construction isn't taking place, I'll remove the signs.
The Honourable Member.
Personally.
Mr. Speaker, the Grand Prairie bypass is a priority for the city as it will alleviate a lot of the traffic pressure within the city, which will improve ambulance access to the new hospital. Can the minister tell me when this project will be completed?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it sounds like a lot of things are happening in the Grand Prairie area. And Mr. Speaker, the eastern half of the bypass was completed in 2010. Mr. Speaker, 90% of the planning and the design is underway for the other portion, and we are still in the process of land acquisition. And Mr. Speaker, we're continuing to work on that section.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Glenmore, followed by the Honourable Member for Calgary Cove.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps the signature promise of the Premier's leadership campaign was her promise to the Teachers' Union to pump $107 million back into that system. She promised that money would come from in-year savings and told Albertans she would not dip into our ever-dwindling savings. Last night, however, the Education Minister signaled she may back down from that promise by refusing to say where the money will come from. To the Finance Minister, is the Education Minister just ill-informed, or do you really not know where or how you will pay for the Premier's education promise?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there's no ill-informed on this side of the House. I think there's a fair bit on the other side, because what the Minister clearly said on about I quit counting after about 15, 20 answers. The same answer to these members last night is that will be accounted for when we do our year-end accounting, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member.
Mr. Speaker, it's a promise on hope and not on thought. Again to the Finance Minister, given the endless examples of this government's wasteful spending and given the litany of examples that we have suggested where that money can come from, such as eliminating the cabinet pay hikes, scrapping the carbon capture, or extending infrastructure projects by 1 year, perhaps a meeting with our finance critic with your budget could help you walk through to show you how to prioritize and where to find the money.
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to talk a little bit about the report that was released yesterday by the Fraser Institute, Mr. Speaker. It talked about this province and this province's finances being in the best shape of any state or province in North America, Mr. Speaker. So, these particular individuals can continue to flail away at certain expenditures, but we'll have a time pretty soon, Mr. Speaker, when the people of Alberta will pass a decision on whether we're spending money appropriately or whether these folks are focusing on something that Albertans really don't care much about.
The Honourable Member.
Isn't it great to brag about a deficit of $6 billion cash? Unbelievable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, but I'll direct this question to the other deficit twin then, since the finance minister doesn't seem to have a clue. To the President of the Treasury Board, given that your government continues to push back its balanced budget target date because of unbudgeted spending, will you commit here and now to find the $107 million in this year's budget so our savings aren't sucked dry and so that your balanced budget target isn't so far away you can't even see it?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's interesting that they're trying to suggest that we have pushed out our targets. I think I answered the question quite clearly in the news scrum, which I saw some of the honourable members diligently taking notes. They obviously must have lost them, I guess. But we did say that our target was 2013-14, and we did also say when we announced the funding for the $107 million that we would find that within in-year savings. And, Mr. Speaker, as the Auditor General has said, and as the Fraser Institute has said, we do the best books in the country, North America, bar none. We're pretty proud of that, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Bow, followed by the Honourable